Dave Barry here with National Recruiting Director Adam Gorney. And Adam, we've seen the news today that Jaden Rashada is suing Billy Napier and a Florida booster over an NIL deal that fell apart back in 2022. Give us some insight into this and the circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah, the backstory here is just too much to go into. It's pretty incredible story, but here's the crux of it. Jaden Rashada was committed to Miami. At that time, the word sort of got leaked out that Florida, whether that was Billy Napier, whether that was Hugh Hathcock, the collective guy who also owned a car company at the time, they were very upset about that. And they put together their own NIL deal to get Rashada to basically flip to Florida. That happened with a $13.85 million NIL deal that was supposed to be in place. Apparently, that money was allegedly never in place, and possibly a small signing bonus was what was potentially given for Rashada to make the flip. So Rashada flips from Miami to Florida, signs with Florida, but never enrolls. And now Rashada has sued Billy Napier, Hathcock, and a recruiting staffer at the time for fraud, basically alleging that the money was never there and that they never intended to pay it. Now, I don't know how that plays out in the legal system. I think, talking to lawyers would be a really interesting situation here. I've read some tweets today that Florida's language in their NIL deal, in the collective's NIL deal, was that at any time and for any reason, the deal could be terminated. So whether that's fraud or what was described as a misunderstanding might be up to a court. But anyway, this sort of shines a bigger light now on NIL deals, dealing with teenage kids and their parents when it comes to millions of dollars at stake. And in no way could this possibly look good for Florida, whether this legitimately was fraud, whether Billy Napier knew that Hugh Hathcock did not have this money to pay and just didn't want Jaden Rashada at Miami, whether they were going to figure it out once he potentially got to Florida and then put together an NIL deal for him. But all around, this just looks slimy. I mean, John Ruiz, the Miami money guy, basically said they never had a $9.5 million NIL deal in place. You're dealing literally with a car salesman at Florida. And now Rashada then goes to Arizona State, where he spent 1 year, transferred, and is now at Georgia. So you have essentially an SEC East rival quarterback suing the coach and the collective guy at Florida. This is just a mess all around. Now, if anyone at Georgia had encouraged Rashada to file this lawsuit, no one knows. But we are definitely in the midst of something that has not been seen ever before. Jaden Rashada is suing an SEC East rival coach for fraud.
Yeah, super interesting. And obviously, we will learn a lot of the details that come out through was there a contract in place and all of that stuff, all the legal issues surrounding it. But what does this mean? Because like you said, it's a conference rival. Florida and Georgia are going to be playing one another in the coming years, obviously. So what does it mean for Florida as a program, NIL in general, and Jaden Rashada going forward?
Yeah, and no one looks good here, really. I mean, maybe Rashada does if he felt there was fraud committed against him, but really no one looks good. Rashada was a talented quarterback in high school, not elite in that recruiting class, but definitely high up there. And in a sense, he's been now at 4 schools before really taking the field at any. He was committed to Miami. He goes to Florida because of a bigger NIL deal. That didn't work out, whether because of a misunderstanding in contract language, whether the Rashadas had lawyers looking at that language, or whether Florida sort of duped him in a way, or whether they legitimately committed fraud against him. Then goes to Arizona State, where he sort of gets on the field, but not a lot. And now is at Georgia. I think it shines a light on NIL and the future of college football recruiting. I don't want to make it too dramatic, though, because after all of this was going down or went down, Florida got a 5-star quarterback in DJ Lagway. So it's not exactly like they were hurting. But Billy Napier is entering this season on the hot seat without question. What does the school feel about this? His involvement, if any, in what was involved with the collective with this money. Rashada in the lawsuit seems to claim that Billy Napier knew full well what was going on at Florida and might have possibly been encouraging it along the way. So, and Hugh Hathcock, did he have the $13.8 million to give Rashada ever? Or didn't he? Was this just a ploy to get Rashada not to play at Miami? I cannot believe that in any way this paints a good light on the Florida football program. It paints a bad light on NIL in general. And Rashada could have had fraud committed against him, or could have just had a massive misunderstanding of what he was getting into in only a year or so ago, a little more than a year ago, when NIL was still in the early stages. There are still no major guardrails around it. There should be in the future. There is a lot of stuff going through Congress right now that could have an effect on this, but certainly a bad look all around. Maybe not necessarily at Miami, but certainly at Florida. And now Rashad is onto his 4th school, an SEC's rival, where he's suing potentially his former coach for a very serious situation here.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see the more details that will be sure to come out. And we will be following this story all along on rivals.com. You can follow Adam there on social media and keep it locked to rivals.com for more information surrounding this story. Adam, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ed.